Hey, all you cats and kittens, welcome to Dad's Den. I am Dad, and this mess behind me is my den. And doing a quick video here. I do my utmost to, never be current or relevant, obviously. If you've watched any of my videos, you know this, and believe me, there's more coming. But I did think I'd talk about something that has become sort of relevant in the last few days, and that is Scooby-Doo. Now, I'm not going to give some kind of a review of this new Velma show, because honestly, I have no interest at all in watching it. I don't watch a whole lot of new stuff because I don't have much interest in it. Sometimes it's just a matter of style, of how things are made. But this one in particular, it's a sort of it's a mean, angry humor that I don't find humorous and I don't like, and I've generally avoided over the years. I mean, like for 25 years, 30 maybe, I don't know. So what I want to talk about really is, I want to talk about the way Scooby-Doo has changed over the last, what is it now, 50 years? Because I think it says something about the, well, if not the culture, then at least the subculture that produces a lot of the entertainment that people watch. When we look at original Scooby-Doo, and this is like the only prop I really have handy. This is the old stuff. This is the old cartoon. Scooby and the gang going out solving mysteries. You look at it, and what you got, it's interesting. You got a show about four friends, different walks of life, but who are friends, and not like they're friends in spite of they're just friends. They're just friends. I can tell you from somebody who grew up, well, not in the 60s when it was made, but a decade or so later. This was not a weird thing. I don't know that it's a weird thing now, but it certainly wasn't a weird thing. You have friends. They're different, but you're all friends. There was no real negativity in the show. I mean, they'd give each other, a little ribbing here and there. Obviously, Shaggy and Scooby were kind of goofy, right? I know Daphne, I think, got ribbed one time for being captured a lot. Although, I'll be honest with you, I don't remember that actually happening a whole lot in the show. Maybe it did. I didn't keep track. I didn't count. But overall, well-adjusted kids. They're friends. They solve these mysteries. And that's it. That's the show. It's fun. It's a fun show. It's a show for kids. But it didn't stay that way, really. I mean, it did for a long time. You had multiple iterations of Scooby-Doo. There was the original series. I think there was a follow-up. And then you had, the new Scooby-Doo movies that had all the guest stars, which was, I mean, how often did a kid get to see an animated version of Sandy Duncan? I mean, it was big. We loved it. Then there was one that had Scooby-Dum and some of his other Scooby cousins, and then Scrappy-Doo shows up. There's multiple iterations, and they all work off the same basic premise. But things did, at a certain point, start to change. Seems like somewhere in the 90s. It sort of, I think, started with comedians. Because comedians had a sort of a bit they would do where you took something from the past and that was innocent, oftentimes made for children, and you made it gross, or you made it weird. You made it tacky, right? And so you start getting, humor. Well, what Fred and Daphne are doing when they separate. Yeah, okay. Hilarious. Oh my, it's the foundation for a massive career. But you got sort of that stuff, right? That seems to get into the popular consciousness, unfortunately. And you really, I think, start to see it when you get the Scooby-Doo live action movies. Now, for the record, I enjoyed them. I actually enjoyed both of them, although the first one quite a bit more. Probably fair to say Matthew Lillard and his Shaggy is the main reason why. Well, and they did a good job with Scooby-Doo, too, of actually bringing it into the live action and making it work. So overall, good movies. But you already see the change happening in the characters, right? We meet them, and they're at odds with one another. But it wasn't just that they were at odds with one another. Some fundamentals of the characters have been tweaked and changed. Daphne's the attractive girl. So Daphne needed to be kind of dumb, a little vapid, maybe a little vain. I don't know that you saw that during the cartoons. She was attractive, but didn't seem vain, didn't seem vapid, didn't seem stupid by any means. Well, Fred, he's the guy, he's the man. Blonde hair, oh goodness sakes. Well, he's got to be arrogant, taking credit for Velma's work. He's bossy. Fred wasn't those things. At least not in such a way that the other characters were all rolling their eyes at him, you know, in the cartoons. Now, Shaggy pretty much stayed Shaggy, and so did Scooby. Thank God. Velma they didn't mess with too much, but she definitely was annoyed at Fred, because obviously she was the smart one, and blah, blah, blah. That wasn't really there in the cartoons, but now it's there in the movies. Now, I get it. There's an aspect of this that you need to create some character conflict so you can resolve things and all that. And so I don't think it was a super negative thing that they did it, but they did it. And it sort of then continues on into some of the later incarnations. I also noticed the other interesting thing was, and this is not so much a cultural shift, well, not a social shift within the culture, but a cultural shift in the originals, you know, up until like, what was that one? The 13 Ghosts of Scooby-Doo, I think was a little different. Vincent Price, come on, it's awesome, right? It was the supernatural element was always fake. And that was the point, right? There's these monsters, these ghosts, but there aren't monsters and ghosts. And so what do we find out? We find out it's some criminal who's faking all this stuff to cheat people, right? Far more now in the modern era is no, there's real, it's the supernatural stuff's real. Which kind of undercuts the whole purpose of the solving the mystery thing. I mean, what mystery is there to solve when it's really a ghost? Now you got to do some kind of weird hocus pocus nonsense to stop the ghost. It really doesn't relate to anything in the real world. It's not something you can take with you, you know, into life. That aside. But from a cultural, more social shift, we got to make all these characters kind of negative. They all have to sort of hate each other a little bit. That, you know, ugh. And so I think that even though that maybe starts out kind of gentle and maybe kind of fun, what do we end up with like 20 years later? That Velma thing. I mean, I've seen like the trailer. It's mean-spirited. I don't know. I mean, unless I'm just not getting it entirely. Yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like that. It seems to me that a lot of this, now a lot of people will put this down to it's this new ideology, it's the woke ideology, which is, I mean, woke is the new name for it. This crap's been around. This crap has been around for a long time. You know, it's just jealousy, envy, identity, this and blah 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 blah, and it's horrible stuff. Been around for a long time. Definitely more prominent now in Hollywood. And a lot of people put it down to that politics and the agenda. And I think that is there. I think that exists to a certain extent. But a lot of it, when we were starting to see this kind of thing back in the 90s and certainly into the 2000s, what it felt like to me was a lot of people hitting the writing rooms, or just writing, scripts for movies, who were basically doing, either doing their therapy or sort of avoiding their therapy that they needed, and taking that sort of their personal demons and unleashing them onto the page, and sadly putting their words and their own biases, their own hang-ups, their own hate being the operative word, because I'll be honest with you, hate is the zeitgeist right now. It just is, and it's a horrible thing, but it's there, man. People in this day and age don't seem to even be able to love without putting it on a foundation of hate, right? I show my love for this person by how much I hate this other person. That's terrible. That gets you nowhere in life. I mean, it's a dead end. It's a terrible thing. But people started taking all that stuff, putting it onto the page, putting it into the mouths of these characters, shifting characters around. It's like, hey, I was the nerd in high school and I hated the popular kids, so I'm going to make Fred and Daphne look like complete, jerks. Fred and Daphne weren't jerks. And you know what? I was a nerd in school. I knew some popular people. Most of them weren't jerks. Sometimes they were a little bit conceited. A lot of popularity will do that to you. Actually, most of them, they were okay. Yeah, they weren't that bad. There's always some bullies, but most of them weren't that bad. But some people take these kind of envy, jealousy, and they just unleash it. And it seems like we're getting a lot of that. And it started with Gen X. I mean, it didn't. It started long before, but it feels like it was sort of kept more in check. And it's just been unleashed now, more pure, more white hot than it ever was before. And getting those kind of demons and things out is not necessarily a bad thing, if it's aimed towards healing. But this doesn't feel like it's aimed towards healing. It's about keeping the trauma alive, keeping the hatred alive, vengeance that can never be satisfied. And so it's been unleashed on Scooby-Doo, and you see it in a lot of other areas too of the culture. It's really sad, So look, take away from this. Obviously, look, hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm seeing stuff that's not there. If you see it too, what I would suggest, avoid it. Avoid it. I'm not watching Velma. This idea of hate watching, I don't hate watching. Why do I want to watch something I hate? There's so much stuff out there that I love. There's so much stuff out there that I don't know, maybe I do love it. I got to give it a chance. I'm going to go watch something that I'm almost positive I'm not going to like. Ugh, who needs that? That's no fun. That's no fun. Avoid this stuff. But also avoid that place of envy and hate. Look, if you need help, if you genuinely have problems, go seek some help. Go out there, find a therapist, find somebody who seems like you can trust. If you don't like what you're getting, find somebody else, right? But try to find the way forward, And if you don't really have these problems, don't pretend you do, and don't indulge in it. And don't. I don't know that people say we're in a culture war. I don't know that we are in a culture war. It seems like to me that there was this rush, this unleashing of this kind of thing in the late 60s, early 70s. And people had their reasons, and maybe they thought they were doing good, but I don't think they ultimately were doing good. I think Gen X was on the receiving end of a lot of this, in the way a lot of people were raised. I was lucky. I was raised in good parents, good grandparents, aunts, uncles, in a place of love. Not perfect, but a place of love. A lot of people weren't. A lot of people had a lot of problems. And now, again, rather than being the like the abused child who goes on to break that cycle of abuse and not bring that onto their own children. It feels like what we're doing is people passing that trauma on. I feel it, so everybody needs to feel it. I think what we're in the middle of is not so much a cultural war. The war happened. It was like an atomic bomb blast. Now we're dealing with the triage. Who can be saved? Who needs the most help? We're trying to save what's left of a culture that, mind you, wasn't perfect. But it was a culture that had hate in it. I mean, that's a human thing. You're not going to get rid of that. But it was not quite so founded upon it. If you're in this kind of bad place, get help. If you're not, help people. Not with hate, but with love. Stop hating. For crying out loud. If Scooby-Doo, if the Scooby-Doo gang becomes a vehicle for this kind of stuff, good Lord, do you have problems? That's not what this is. It's a fun show for kids, for crying out loud. Go get therapy and stop acting out using kids' characters from 50 or 40 or 30 years ago. Seriously. All right, so you like Velma, go like Velma. Laugh at it, have fun. It's too negative for me. I'm going to stick with the old Scooby-Doo. Put those on once in a while and have a laugh and remember old times, And I'm going to go seek out other stuff that is positive and confident. And if it's pointing out problems in society, it's actually trying to fix them. That's what I'm going to do. All right. Hey, that's the video for today. That's Dad's Den. If you enjoy the content here, I'd love it if you'd subscribe. That'd be awesome. If you could gently touch that like button to register your approval, I'd love that. If you think I'm completely full of crap, go ahead, leave some comments. Yeah, if it's just abuse, I'm going to ignore it. But if you got something good to say, great. I think a lot of us out there just want to have a good, positive place to live. We don't want to abuse anybody. We don't want to hurt anybody. But I'm going to tell you right now, the way you get to that better world is with love and forgiveness and patience. Not with anger, not with hate. You will never cure hate with more hate. You're just throwing gasoline on the fire. All right, folks. I hope you have a good day, good week, good year, good life. And I will see you next time around, where I'm going to be reviewing a couple sci-fi novels. I think that's the next one. That was actually going to be the one that was put out before this, but I decided to be relevant for 5 minutes. All right. I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.